America, and she's a photographer, but she once was following the more corporate world, so we're going to get a little insight into that and get a little taste of what it's like to kind of change your career and give up the corporate world for something a little bit more untraditional, maybe could be the word. But yeah, going to be a very interesting little chat here. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Sunday morning, Saturday night. But over here in the east coast of ours,
Hi.
it's Vivian, Kim.
Hi.
We're Golden Coast of Australia to the United States of America. Where are we tuning in from here, Viv?
We're in Playa del Rey, California, right by Venice.
Oh, baby, it's good to hear a Californian accent. What's going on? Saturday afternoon over there?
Yeah, my boyfriend Jake and I, we potted some plants outside and went shopping at Trader Joe's and got some
what a
coffee.
day.
Yeah. Fun
Beautiful.
stuff. Yeah.
And what's your brew? What's your coffee order?
Ooh, I got an almond milk chai and he got a black coffee. Pretty basic.
Black coffee. Big shout out to Jakey boy tuning in. Wolf Howl. It's good to have you on the show, Viv. Give everyone a little bit of context. Who are you? Where do you come from? How did we get here?
Yes, thanks for having me. My name's Vivian, and I'm a photographer in California. And when I first met Elliot, we met in Malibu, and I was doing photography kind of as a hobby, but I was working in sports medicine and health, and I'm still very interested in that world, but I was kind of doing both, and then I made the transition about a year and a half to 2 years ago to just do photography full time. And yeah, it's been great.
So you kind of brush over it as if it was something that was pretty easy, but I know from personal chatting to your process to get there. Give everyone a little bit of insight. Because how do you leave something so certain and such a kind of prestigious world for something like almost unknown? You don't really know, like.
Hi, Chandler. Yeah. Well, I mean, I really enjoyed the work that I was doing at the health clinic, but I think ultimately I just had this epiphany, like I wanted to be outside rather than just inside looking out, because we were in this really beautiful building and there were glass windows and things like that. And I was looking down at the beach every day, and I just felt like I would rather be down there than looking at it. And so from that point on, I mean, photography was doing well on the side, but I kind of set these steps up so that I could make the jump effortlessly. So I got some retainers with some companies and told myself that I would quit once I got like these retainers. And at that point I left the clinic, and not for any other reason than just wanting to be outside and experience the world. But yeah.
God, such a special little story, and something that I love hearing so much because we're really good friends, and I love seeing you go from the inside to the outside, kind of metaphorically speaking. But run everyone through how you like lock in retainers and actually make a living from it. Because for a lot of people, like I know from personal experience, like people will happily pay for an accountant to balance their books, or like the doctor to fix them if they're sick. But a lot of people kind of expect photos for free. So it's a pretty hard industry to make a living from.
Yeah, one piece of advice that I got from my friend was, when I was just starting off, was to not sell myself short. And I think, I mean, and it's kind of, I see both sides, because when you're starting out, you do want to build a portfolio of what you're working on so that you have something to show. And, it's hard to get people to trust you with their money initially, but I would say that when you're able to kind of judge what makes something worth it for you or not, like even if you are doing something for free, if it's worth it for you to have that, work on your portfolio or have that connection, then I mean, I would definitely take it. But also like knowing your worth and knowing that like if you're if you have faith in your talent and you know that other people are getting paid for, you know, what you're expected to do, then you should stand your ground and kind of know what you're worth enough to charge for your services, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Viv. So how did you kind of materialize it? What does that entail?
Yeah, so going into the retainers, I had some companies who I was already working with, and I pretty much offered. I mean, I feel like when you're consistently delivering good work, and not getting complacent about just like creating content, but really wanting to make sure that everything you deliver is on point, is good, then people want to continue to work with you. So I feel like it was pretty synonymous with the brands that I was working with. We both really enjoyed working with each other, and I was trying to do my best to provide them with as much as I could. And so, I mean, it would come up in conversation quite often with certain clients. A lot of people want to work together on a, you know, consistent basis. And so I think at that point, just doing a lot of research and asking people about like how much you should be charging and just kind of gauging like what the market rate is and putting yourself, you know, wherever you think that you lie in that.
So did you did you come in a lot cheaper than you are now, or have you kind of did you come in with what you're worth and you've kind of like held that strong kind of thing, and the only time that you kind of alleviate is if there's an opportunity to build your portfolio or like you're maybe, you know, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely did start lower than what I'm at now, and I think a lot of like my growth in what I'm charging now comes, and it really depends on the project and how much work I think it's going to take. And once again, it's still kind of that same value of how much you believe your time's worth. And I mean, you can only dedicate so much of your time during the day to certain projects. So just being able to pick and choose. And I think, you know, if you do have more experience or invest in more expensive gear, then just you can kind of, you know, rate up from that than when you're a beginner and you're shooting with like a $200 setup versus thousands of dollars.
Yeah, for sure. Really good advice, Viv. And one of the things that I loved about you was like we were all, when we met you, we were all shooting DSLRs, like shooting thousands of frames for like the one thing, but you were really embracing the art of film photography.
Mm-hmm.
Talk us through your passion. What do you love about it, and what why kind of what drew you to it almost?
Yeah, so I started shooting in high school with one of my best friends at the time. His name was Dylan, and his grandpa gave him like a really old film camera. It's a Canon AE1, and I still have mine. But I pretty much
Oh,
got
little.
the same
You're gonna
exact.
show us?
Yeah, let me see. I got the same exact camera that he did off of
Oh,
Craigslist.
so that's the first one.
Yeah, this is the first one.
No way.
And then, yeah, I mean, I think we both, I mean, he is awesome. He is like really good with cars, and we would like make our own skateboards and all this stuff. So he was definitely kind of like the trendsetter, and film wasn't even really explored back then. Obviously, after like the downfall in popularity when DSLRs came out, but I just loved how intimate it was and how it just like really made me slow down. And I think just getting film back was really exciting to like high schoolers in a neighborhood where like all we would do was like just be outside or like be with our friends, like doing stupid things. And so, yeah, I think that's really where my love for photography started, was just picking up a film camera, and it just really made me like think. And I think it like made my mind just put it in a different state of mind. I feel like typically I'm always just like going and not really thinking about what I'm doing, but with film photography it really makes you think about everything you're doing. So yeah.
So elaborate that out for us. When you say think about everything you're doing, what's going through your mind when you're about to shoot a frame on film? Because you got one shot.
Yeah. So pretty much like each roll of film has like 24 to 36 exposures if you're shooting on 35 millimeter film. And film can be expensive, especially when you're a high schooler. So I mean, I would be thoughtful with like every shot I took. So you have to set the exposure, which is pretty similar to a DSLR, but you would do it manually as opposed to just with the button on a DSLR. And then you have your shutter speed and certain cameras. I mean, my light meter was broken on here, so I would have to use this other thing. Let me show you this, which is a light meter. And it's a pretty ancient little toy, but it tells you what you want to have your aperture and shutter speed at. Hold on.
So cool.
So you would point it in a certain direction, and it tells you your light value.
Gives you the settings.
Yeah, and that's on the back.
No way. Yeah, I've seen one of them before, but I never knew what like Dad had one lying around the house when I was younger, but I never knew what it was for.
Yeah.
So now I do. So you point it at light and it gives you the settings.
Yep, it gives you the settings. So then you would pretty much match it on here or do something similar. One of the coolest things I did, I think manually, was take a double exposure, but on a manual film cameras and cameras now have like settings where you could set the double exposure option. But this one, I pretty much shot through a whole roll of film and then I wound it all back in the other direction, like back into the canister, and then you reshoot the roll. And I remember I was listening like this while I was winding to hear when it felt like it was like getting close to the end of the roll, and I could hear it kind of like lighten up. And then at that moment I just guessed and I started shooting that same roll through. But
what?
Yeah, so really, you know, when you're a bored kid, it really can keep you busy.
Oh, the best experiments come out of boredom.
Yeah.
So, talk us through your process then, from like shooting it to getting it developed and delivering it and then distributing it. What do you kind of have a process that you work through, or is it kind of different every time?
Yeah, so typically, I mean, it's good now because I feel like when I was starting, I thought that I was at a disadvantage shooting on film because most people were shooting these really crisp digital images. But I had kind of just stuck to my style, and so it's been pretty much the same, my process, but it's, you know, I'll shoot it with a roll of film, and my favorites are Portra 400 or Portra 160 or Ilford HP5 for black and white. But I'll usually shoot on one of those. And then once you get through the whole roll, you obviously have to process it, and I take it to a lab, and they do a good job. And then once they process it in certain chemicals, then they'll dry it out, and then once it's dry, it can be scanned. And so then I get my scans. Now I get everything in high res, which can be pricey, but I think it's worth it just to ensure that you're delivering the highest quality of images.
And now that you're the big time.
Well, yeah, so
I'm kind of a big deal.
No, not even, but
yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and then you just, you know, I'll put it like on a really nice web page. I use Pixie Set, and it just is like a really good presentation of the images, and it all kind of flows together. So I use that to deliver my images to the client, and yeah.
Love it. And one thing that we kind of brushed over there was, which I remember when you were over in Australia, we had a really good chat on the ferry back from Rottnest Island, and you were talking about how you kind of felt like you had, you kind of felt like that was what you were supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Do you still kind of have that philosophy? And if you do, where do you think where are you drawn to, like, in the next couple of years, now that you've kind of found your feet?
Yeah. You mean traveling or photography?
Both.
Yeah. Well, I think that it makes me feel like where I'm supposed to be at in life, because I feel like the most myself when I'm doing it. Like when I'm on a shoot with different people, meeting different people like you and everyone else, and like certain clients that I work with, just upholding a really good relationship with them. It just makes me feel like I'm doing exactly what I was made to do, which is just connecting with other people and capturing beautiful moments and things like that. So I think that for as long as this makes me feel that way, I'll be doing that. And then, I mean, I think I'll always be doing it as a hobby, but I obviously also, as you know from our prior conversations, like I'm always thinking about like the next thing and like what I can be doing next. So I think, you know, I'll kind of be thinking that way and hopefully start something else soon, but also like always continue with this, like whether it's, you know, find or whether it's my main source of income or not.
Yeah, you certainly just are at home in the creative scene where you can kind of, you're meeting people and you're bouncing around, chatting to people, and that, I feel like that's kind of, you're so you when you're shooting. I can see it, and I know from our experience when we're taking photos, I love the energy like when I'm around you taking photos. So that's pretty cool. But
Yeah.
I know that you're a bit of a badass businesswoman too, so I can certainly see that either is going to come in or it's coming in already. Well, I guess it's kind of an aspect to what you do now, winning work and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of want to talk about like where you draw inspiration from, and maybe you can touch on like if that is traveling, and if so, is that why you travel, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I draw inspiration honestly from like opposite ends of the spectrum, both like wanting to get out and see new things and meet new people, and then also just like being alone. And I think for me, the majority of the time, like I want to be going out and meeting new people and connecting with people, and oftentimes it's harder for me to take a step back and like be by myself. But I think that that's still, you know, that's when I'm like processing everything that I might experience on the other end of the spectrum, like out and about with new people, and yeah, I need that alone time as well. So I think that's where I get a lot of my inspiration to like slow down and try to remember like what I appreciate in life pretty much. And that's kind of when I'm shooting like a lot of my personal stuff. And I think, yeah, a lot of travel I've done on my own, which I enjoy because I get to meet like people of different cultures and not just the friends that I go to travel with. But yeah, I think just like being in even situations where I'm uncomfortable, just anything that kind of puts me out of my regular routine in life.
So give us some examples. Let's get practical. Where have you gone where you've kind of felt like you were out of your normal routine, or you've really felt out of your depth, or perhaps challenged, and maybe like some of your better experiences traveling?
Yeah, honestly, like I mean, it's even like when I feel sad about something, just like that's often when I'm like in my own headspace and not really like connected to other people. And I'm like doing so much thinking on my own. And I feel like every time I'm in that space, I am drawn back to nature in some form, like whether it's me like wanting to go on a trip to kind of forget about things or distract myself from them, or just, you know, going to the beach to be alone. I feel like that's when like inspiration seems loudest to me. And a lot of that is from nature. And that's what I like, that's what made me fall in love with photography too, is like I was photographing nature before I was people. And then secondly, I think, you know, one of my favorite places, I mean, for me, like I love going to tropical places, and it might just be like the change in pace, and I don't know, yeah, just back to the idea of slowing down. But I also love Australia. Like I think I just like being a spectator of some form of culture.
Yeah, and stepping out of what the culture is in America. What about
Mm-hmm.
some of your? What do you think your like one of your favorite jobs that you've gone on location for is? Maybe paint the
Um,
picture for people what your kind of on location shoot looks like in terms of the travel as well.
yeah, so I think my favorite shoot that I had done on location was the Portugal trip with Ocean Alley and Wrangler. And I was pretty much the only American, and it was everyone else was from Australia, and it was great because I love Aussies. And yeah, I mean, I like that the whole team kind of was very lax about the whole thing, and I feel like in America, in the creative world, and just in the professional world, everyone is very serious and needs to get their work done, and everything's on a tight schedule. But what I really appreciated working with that team was they just more so wanted to capture the moment and capture the boys just hanging out in their clothes instead of like every shot list item having to be ticked off, you know?
Yeah. And you're
Yeah.
more of just a spectator.
Right,
like you were
exactly.
saying.
And then you can capture like organic moments and things like that.
Yeah. Buzzword, organic.
You ever heard of it?
Yeah, awesome, Viv. And so you just came to Australia before. Have you settled back into the US? What's a typical day in the life look like? Was today your standard day?
I would say my standard weekend, yes, but typically during the weekday, I wake up and I'll do some form of workout, and that kind of helps to break up my day because I'll usually work from home if I'm not shooting, so it kind of gives me an excuse to get outside. And then I'll walk my dog Brixton, and I'll hang out with my boyfriend usually. And so, yeah, I try to get a lot of work done though during the weekday, and I still treat it like a 9 to 5 or sometimes even later. So I'm still, you know, trying to work really hard instead of just being, yeah, then Erewhon, a lot of Erewhon. But yeah, instead of just being complacent with like and waiting for jobs, I try to make sure that I can maximize like the time that I have to be working.
I think that's one thing that's brushed over too. A lot of people kind of assume that you just like you're not working as a photographer, like unless you're taking photos, obviously. But
yeah,
you actually, like you say, you're treating it as a 9 to 5, and you wake up and you still have the same, well, a similar structure to like working in the more kind of structured corporate world, but it's kind of off your own back. And I've found for myself, I'm kind of not really focused on time when I'm working on my own things. So like you say 9 to 5, but you also say you work later as well because you're probably not even tracking how long you're working, hey?
Exactly, yeah. And yeah, sometimes I have to like take a break mentally because I will have just been on my computer for like 9 hours, you know?
So that's why you go to Erewhon for a couple hours at lunchtime.
Yep, exactly. Everyone
And then another couple hours at dinner.
Yeah, I get up for snacks like every 20 minutes, so I get my steps in.
What's a naughty Vivian Kim workday snack?
A naughty one.
So like you're getting up and you're maybe having a macro bar.
No. Lately I've been having cookies like every day.
Viv, how dare you?
For like the past, I know I'm talking to the elite athlete over here, but I've been having cookies sometimes like 2 to 3 every single day. Jake and I discovered these cookies from Erewhon, and they're like these vegan oatmeal chocolate chip cookies.
Oh, I actually know the ones. I know the ones.
Yeah, they're so good. So
for those that don't know, Erewhon is pretty much the world's best supermarket. Very dangerous place because you end up spending a lot of money, but it's only in Venice Beach. They really need to bring one of those to Australia, or maybe they don't.
It's from Isabella's. It is so good. Someone just asked. Well, my friend just asked. Yeah, they're Isabella's cookies. They're so good, and they were on sale. It was like $3 instead of $30.
So buy 10 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, awesome, Viv. And any projects in the pipeline that you can share with us, or is it all kind of hush hush ATM?
Yeah, right now I have like some things coming up that are kind of up in the air. So I guess something tangible that I'm working on currently is, I shoot for this really cool pajama company every month, and they make these really cool luxury pajamas, and they're based out of the UK. They're called Desmond and Dempsey. And then I work pretty frequently with Nautica, which is like the men's, aquatic focus brand. And then I will probably be going to New York and/or Europe in June, so that's exciting.
Just low key?
Yeah, just Loki. And then France in September to watch you race.
Are you going to come to Nice?
Yeah, I want to.
Oh, that's unreal, Viv. That'd be so cool if that pans out.
I know.
Yeah, psyched. Oh, awesome, Viv. Thanks so much for jumping on the live and having a chat. It's been so cool sharing the nets, sharing half of the screen with you,
yes.
and talking all things photog in your journey. We'll have you back on maybe in a couple of months' time after you've been to New York, and you can keep us up to date with how things are going in Viv World.
Okay, perfect. Great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Viv. Awesome. Another great chat this morning on the Den FM Daily. Thanks so much to Viv for tuning in, shedding some light on the photography world and getting a start in the creative scene. Definitely a competitive world. As I mentioned, we'll check back in with her in a couple of months' time. Thank you once again for joining us on the Den FM Daily. We'll be back tomorrow with another installment. In the meantime, have an epic day and a massive thanks and big love to Viv. Love you all. Peace out.